Why, hello there, friends. Welcome to All Day the Geek Way. I'm Jet. Hope you're enjoying your way. The Geek Way, of course. Now, let's just jump into it. I want to talk about Scarlett Johansson, the movie, also known as Marvel Studios' Black Widow. But overall, not bad. The movie's not too bad. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. When it comes to my movie reviews, I'm not gonna give you like a letter grade, a C minus, or a B plus, or a number grade, unless I really feel the need to. I'll just give you like what I have to say overall. You interpret the tone, and you go from there. And it wasn't bad. I don't feel a desire to watch it again. Like, I've seen Marvel movies where I've wanted to watch it over and over again. The first Iron Man movie, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Infinity War, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, in terms of the characterization. Those are movies, Marvel movies, where I'm like, yeah, I need to see these again, as opposed to this movie where I'm like, I saw it once, I'm okay. Do I feel like I wasted my time? No, not at all. It was worth the watch, I just don't think I'd do it again. Now, just to kind of get into the cast, now we have Natasha Romanoff as who is Black Widow, as played by Scarlett Johansson. I think she held the movie pretty well on her own. I got to give her credit. She did a pretty good job. Now, especially if you compare her acting chops between Iron Man 2 to now. Iron Man 2, it was really rough, I got to be honest. Well, that's a rough movie. It's not anywhere near one of my favorite Marvel movies, and I'm a diehard Iron Man fan. But her role, I don't know if it was like she just didn't understand the character at the time, or if Jon Favreau didn't give her that good direction, or if she was not a great actress at the time. I don't know. But that all being said, her now, she's improved so much. Like, she understands the character, she's able to hold a movie on her own, and she brought a lot of life into the movie. I feel like her character was genuine, worthy of being called essentially a superhero or an Avenger, and kind of playing that spy role, but also being a human being. She made herself relatable to where with Black Widow, it was just like, yeah, she's a woman, like, cool. Like, who is she though? And this really brought to life as to who she is. Granted, they've alluded to it in other Marvel movies, but this, finally, we get like more backstory. Now, granted, where it kind of suffers and sucks for Scarlett Johansson is the movie takes place before the events of Infinity War. So it's still considered phase 2 in terms of chronology, I guess. That's kind of where the movie suffers, and it doesn't help Scarlett Johansson that much. And I don't feel like the movie needed to be made. It wasn't a story that needed to be told. That being said, Scarlett Johansson did a good job with a story that was being told. I gotta give her credit. Then you have Florence Pugh? It's P-U-G-H. I don't know how to pronounce it, so leave it in the comments for pronunciation. But she played Yelena Belova, the kind of secondary character in the movie, the blonde spy, or the blonde widow. She was good. I really felt like it was a new character. If she's in the comics, then, geez, I'm not as big of I'm not as a diehard comic book fan as I like to claim I am, but she was definitely her own character, and she was very individualistic. She had her good comedic moments. I thought the actress did really well in terms of comedy and that Russian bluntness, but also having those serious moments, especially when you look at the backstory at the beginning of the movie. Again, no spoilers, you don't need to worry about it. I think she does a really good job, especially in conveying messaging and overall themes of the movie. I don't know about so much with the very subtle theme that the movie puts in, but she does a good job. Then you have the character played by David Harbour, Alexei Shostakov, the Red Guardian. I have yet to be really disappointed with a role that David Harbour has played. Granted, I don't want look too hard into David Harbour roles. Of course, he plays Harper in Stranger Things, and he's wonderful. The Hellboy movie, the new one, was absolute garbage. But I won't say that he did injustice to the character of Hellboy. He did justice to Hellboy, just the movie sucked. Like, it's a difference between looking at the character, between that and looking at the overall story and how it was conveyed. And the Hellboy movie was garbagely conveyed. That was a garbage movie. In this movie, he did a wonderful job. He did well. Not my favorite, but he did a wonderful job. Like, the Red Guardian was clearly meant to be more of like a comedic role, not to be taken as seriously, kind of implicit in an overall message. But David Harbour did a wonderful job. Definitely the comedic moments go to the Red Guardian and David Harbour's execution. I think he had the best execution of lines in the movie, especially for comedic timing. Then you have Rachel Weisz, who played Melina Vostokov. Honestly, she was my favorite actress in the movie. And the role, too, it was my favorite role. Kind of like you could see her at the beginning, like you could tell that she's clearly very intelligent, but also like in terms of comedic timing and working with David Harbour, where David Harbour has that goofiness, she has the Russian bluntness. So like the Russian bluntness and just very straightforward, the good timing, like very, very good. That juxtaposition between the two works really well. She was honestly my favorite role. I thought she held it pretty well. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me, but I enjoyed her. And you have Ray Winstone, who played Dreykov. And he's essentially just kind of the Bond villain. Just kind of in the background and like, oh yeah, I manipulate everything. I think the actor did well. For the limited time, he did well. And then you have the role of Taskmaster. I don't want to spoil the name of the character or the actress. If you haven't looked it up, I won't spoil it, but it is spoiler territory. If you're a big comic book fan and you're a huge fan of the Taskmaster, I'll admit you'll probably be a little disappointed. Granted, they still have the same like power sets of being able to replicate martial arts, like all of them. You see replications of like Black Panther, Captain America, Black Widow, and you're able to see that the character can hold their own very well. The Taskmaster is definitely like the antagonist seen on the screen, but plays more of a secondary role. You can definitely tell that from the beginning of the movie. And I think the Taskmaster as a character, not really well executed. I think it played more into a theme and messaging rather than characterization and going from there. Taskmaster was okay. I see it from a cinematic standpoint, but if you're a diehard fan of Taskmaster in the comics, you might be a little bit disappointed. Now, in terms of messaging in the movie, there's a little bit of messaging, like there's the messaging behind family and how that's conveyed in the movie, and then there's also kind of like the message of individuality. I don't want to go too deep into it, especially for a non-spoiler review. And not to mention, what I have to say about it might be considered a stretch to the point where you can sell taffy at Disneyland. That's how much of a stretch it could be considered. I will admit that, but I'll go into that in my next video. But with the messaging overall in terms of like social justice and corporate virtue signaling, Disney's finally listened to people. I don't even think it's necessarily Disney as much as it's the directors and the creators. The messaging for social justice and themes such as like feminism and all that stuff, it's very subtle, thankfully. Granted, this movie is not as subtle compared to like The Mandalorian season 2, the finale of it. Now that was very well executed. I give Dave Filoni, I can't remember if he directed it, I have to double check, but I give him a lot of credit. Like that was feminism done super well. It wasn't overt in its messaging. Compare that to like Endgame, where there's that scene in the third act, there's that final battle, and all of a sudden like the camera's panning at all the women. You got Pepper Potts, you got Shuri, you have all these women characters, and they're super strong and they're women. Like, it's kind of cringe, and it doesn't get its messaging done as effectively. This movie took more of the Mandalorian route. It's a lot more subtle about it. And the thing about The thing about movies and television shows that make it overt is it treats the audience like they're stupid and it's cringe, rather than letting the audience figure it out for themselves. Where you have the puzzle, like the pieces of the puzzle are all there, and then the audience member gets to contribute and be like, "Oh, I get it now," as opposed to being like, "Don't you get it? They're women. Yeah, they're women. They're women." It's like, okay, yeah, cringe. Like, I get it. They're powerful. As opposed to just having a movie like this one where it's just like, hey, these are characters. Yeah, they're women, but they're characters. Like, they're not defined by being a woman. Or you don't have a gay character being defined by being gay. It's like, they're a character. And also, here's this. Like, okay, cool. Like, it felt more natural. How about that? We'll say that. That was a really long-winded way of saying it felt more natural. In terms of music choice, it's interesting at the beginning. Like, there's a lot of music choices made at the beginning. I won't give the context as to it, but just know they used Don McLean's American Pie at the beginning, and they also use a cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit, the original song by Nirvana, the cover being by Malia J, who I think like got top of the charts in terms of like iTunes for that music. Like, the cover's pretty good. It's a lot more somber. Not that the song is like, oh, like super extravagant and less somber. It's a somber way of displaying teenage angst, I guess, if you want to interpret the song that way. But you'll kind of understand like Don McLean's American Pie, like in 2015 when they did an auction and he kind of revealed the message behind the song, kind of talking about like the American idyllics, like American ideology and like the fantasy. And as you grow up over the years, it becomes less and less true and you become a little bit more cynical to it. Like, you kind of have that. Granted, interpret songs how you like, but this is like, it kind of plays into the theme of the movie, which again, I won't spoil, but you also have like teenage angst through Smells Like Teen Spirit, but also thinking about Kurt Cobain at the time. He had a huge problem with the mainstream. And you definitely, with this song, the cover of the song definitely plays into having some sort of angst or not being okay with the mainstream. Because at first, when you see the title sequence, you're just like, okay, why is this song playing? Like, it's kind of weird. I don't get it. But then the movie goes on. You're like, okay, all right, cool. They're alluding to a bigger theme. And you start to get it later. So the music choice wasn't bad. The original soundtrack stuff was pretty natural. In terms of choreography was pretty well done. It was very well done, actually. It didn't have like a bunch of shaky cam. Like, if you've ever seen the Jason Bourne movies, Bourne Identity was very smooth in its choreography. You could tell who was hitting whom. And then when it got to Bourne Supremacy and Bourne Ultimatum, it's just a bunch of shaky cams. You don't know who's punching who. Gunshots are going off, but like everything's all shaky and it's just kind of going like this the entire time. It doesn't have that. It flows pretty well. And in terms of comedy, it felt kind of forced in this movie. Granted, it had some really funny moments. There was a couple moments where I laughed out loud. One of them involving a helicopter. No spoilers, I promise. Like, there were a couple times where I laughed out loud, but other comedic moments, it's just like, all right, move on from the joke. I get it. You're playing on to previous movies that involve Scarlett Johansson. Let's move on. And it does it a few times, and the comedy feels a lot more forced. It's not nearly as natural. That's like one of my big downsides to the movie. In terms of flow, it went pretty well. And again, like, I'm gonna kind of end it right here. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It was a pretty good movie. Like, it wasn't bad. I don't feel I need to watch it again, just to kind of re-summarize it. It had its good moments, choreography, subtlety and messaging. I thought the actors did fairly well. When it comes to Marvel, they don't seem to really have bad actors, thankfully. And they've had good direction so far. I thought this movie had pretty good direction. I appreciate that it gave a little bit more backstory into Black Widow. But it wasn't really a story that needed to be told. I would encourage people to watch it, maybe once. I don't think you need to watch it again. But yeah, maybe watch it once. My next video is going to be the spoiler review, so hopefully if you got through this video, I do highly appreciate it. And if you enjoy the content and enjoy what I have to say, please, I do encourage that you subscribe. Give this video a like, it helps with the YouTube algorithm. And leave a comment below. Maybe tell me, like, oh yeah, it was a pretty good review, or this review was trash. Like, I don't care. Like, get involved. I encourage involvement. So that all said, I'm Jet. Hope you've been enjoying your daily geek way, and please continue to do so. Bye.